Welcome to Tales from the Streets.
Here's what our narrator has to say. My husband nearly died last week, all because he was a COVIDot who joined naysayers in saying that COVID-19 vaccine is not necessary. When the government announced in May, or was it March, that people should go for their jabs of AstraZeneca, I told my husband we had to go get our jabs. He is in his late 60s, and I'm 10 years younger than him. He's also diabetic. Has been since his late 40s. For someone with an existing condition, I felt he would say, "Yes, let's go, immediately." Instead, he said he didn't want to be used as a guinea pig. Every time I read articles on COVID-19, I would forward to him or read it out loud. But no, he refused completely, and he's an educated man. No. He would quote statistics. Do you know the vaccines are still being tested? I don't want to be used as a guinea pig. Do you know the vaccines can cause blood clot? Who will take responsibility for that? Let them be deceiving you there. Once you sanitize and keep your distance, it's like cold, flu, you will be fine. In short, how many people have died on our streets? Coming from a man who is well educated, well traveled too, I left him to his beliefs. Me, I went to get my jabs, the first and later the second. I just had to take it because we were dealing with a virus that had killed so many people worldwide. Are world leaders and the medical sector lying that people are dying from coronavirus? I figured, even if one will die, let it not be because of a foolish idea that coronavirus doesn't exist. Anyway, my husband was doing fine until we attended a wedding last week. 2 days after, he began to cough. You know, the first clearing of throat, and then it became something that kept him awake all night. Baka, 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 all through the night, keeping me awake as well. We didn't suspect anything. I just said I will get him cold cough syrup the following morning. But I made him steam in hot aboniki and gave him ginger drink, which he had always taken before now. By the following morning, he was shivering and running high temperature. That was when I became worried. I rubbed him again with aboniki, then made pepper soup, all the while thinking, this was malaria on its way. My sister, I didn't see what was coming at us at all. I went to the pharmacy to buy him malaria drugs and cough syrup. By the time I came back, my husband was unrecognizable. He was beginning to gasp for breath and shooting high temperatures, coughing and in obvious pain. I removed his clothes and began to towel to mop his body in a bid to bring down his temperature while I asked my kids to go get someone to help me carry their father into the car downstairs. All this time, COVID-19 did not cross my mind, even though I had read several pieces and had watched so many videos on it. Why, you ask? Because even when we went to the wedding, we both wore our masks. We were careful not to shake hands and mingle with other people, especially when it was time to go to the dancing floor. We sanitized every time we had to shake family and friends at the wedding. We obviously didn't keep safe enough. At the hospital, since they had his medical records, they told us they were mandated by government to carry out COVID tests on all patients regardless of their symptoms. I told them to carry on. But even before the doctor came back with the nurse to do the test, my husband had slipped into a coma. He's diabetic, so it was a diabetic coma. Even so, I was scared. I began to cry, but I was told to go and wait at the reception while the doctors did their thing for him. A few hours later, they called me to come and carry my husband because he had tested positive to COVID-19. I just passed out. When I came to, they asked me to call a relative to come and take my husband away from the hospital, because if the government found out they had a COVID patient, their hospital would be shut down. By this time, they were already treating us like lepers. They insisted I did a COVID test too, since they knew I had been with my husband all this while. Thankfully, I tested negative. But that was the beginning of our troubles. The way they hurried us out of the hospital with my husband still in coma was pathetic. They didn't even listen to my plea. They said we were jeopardizing the lives of the patients, doctors, and nurses. You know what's worse? My husband was abandoned on the floor of the hospital outside while we were frantically sourcing for hospitals that would take him. Yeah, by we, I mean my husband's family and friends who I called for help. Private hospitals that took in COVID patients were full, and isolation centers from Lasut to Luth to the few hospitals on the island that took in COVID patients all were also full. Well, not so full, but their asking price for taking in my husband was the reason we couldn't go. They were asking for 3 million naira deposit. And no, they didn't want installmental payment. They wanted it in full. Finally, we got a cheap center that would take us as cheap as 2.7 million full payment, or don't bother to come. We scrambled around for money. Someone brought 40k, another brought 200k, another brought 45k, another 1 million. And of course, I emptied both our accounts. But before we could go to the hospital, we had to hire an ambulance for 100,000 naira, last price. But before we got the ambulance, eventually, we got to the hospital and found out that after paying 2.7 million deposit, we would be required to pay daily fees of no less than 50 to 250,000. This is beside the drugs and protective gear for people who will be caring for him. So you see what not taking cheap vaccine has cost us. That was when I called my husband's siblings abroad. Your brother is dying, and he's in a coma. He has caught corona and we need money to save him. Thankfully, my husband is recuperating. Now, he also wants to tell me that once he gets out of isolation, he will go get the vaccine. The person we have forewarned, Lord, give him ears to listen. Look at all the trauma he put me through. Please, tell everyone to get vaccinated. The isolation centers are fast filling up, and many people are dying from this Delta variant. I repeat, the person we have forewarned, Lord, give him ears to listen.
If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.